Welcome, or hopefully welcome back to the Reluctant Entrepreneur Podcast, where we explore the real stories behind the highs, lows, and hard-earned lessons of entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Mike Conrad. Today, I'm joined by Lindy Nowak, founder and CEO of Up in a Day, a company that's revolutionizing how small businesses launch their online presence. After more than a decade as a creative director in New York City, working with major brands like L'Oreal and Women's Health, Lindy traded the fast-paced corporate world for the even faster world of entrepreneurship. Her mission? To help entrepreneurs and small business owners get professional, high-impact websites quickly, affordably, and without the usual headaches. In this conversation, we'll talk about her leap from corporate security to startup uncertainty, the lessons she's learned about speed, simplicity, and saying no, and how she's built a thriving business by focusing on what small businesses truly need. This is a story about creativity, courage, and redefining what it means to build something meaningful, fast. My conversation with Lindy begins right now. Stick around. Hey, Lindy, thanks for joining me. I'm happy you're my guest today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited too. I do love talking about websites and stuff like that because I'm my company's webmaster. I am absolutely untrained in that role, but like many, I went okay, and there we are. But so I'm very interested in that technology. But before we dive down that rabbit hole, when you reached out to me, you commented that you're an intentional entrepreneur, and I only call the show The Reluctant Entrepreneur because that was my journey. No part of me wanted to own a business. I just had an idea. I had a product that I had designed, and no one else would do it. And the only way to get it to market was just to do it myself. And that showed many years after I started the business because I didn't know anything about business. I was good on the tech side. I was rotten on the business side. I'm always impressed by people who either grew up or for a long time wanted to be in business on their own. So tell me more about the intention and to operate a business, own a business, and where did that desire to start your own business come from?
Well, great question and great intro. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's a great intro because it's great information. I mean, it's easy to sound great when I'm talking about people who have done great things. So that's you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I started my career in corporate America. I immediately found myself after graduating university in New York City into the thick of it. And I spent about 12 years in New York City as a creative director and other marketing roles in these big corporations, mostly on the brand side. And then most recently, my last 7 years, I was at 7 years before Up in a Day, I was in publishing. And that's really where I got my feet wet in sales and marketing. And luckily, my boyfriend and I had an opportunity to move from New York to Miami. And when I got to Miami, I couldn't find the right position at the right company for me. And that's kind of like the top story. But truly, the intention of becoming an entrepreneur really falls under the two facts. One, I come from a family of 30 people, all entrepreneurs. I'm the only one in my family that went corporate. And the second reason I decided to become an entrepreneur was because while working in corporate and having these really amazing roles was really great for me, and I was very successful in those roles, I never fit in. I've always felt a little boxed in. I always felt like I had a lot more to share and a lot more to do. And so when I moved to Miami, I knew that was the breaking point. Miami is a beautiful hub of entrepreneurs, tech startups, and I wanted to be a part of it. And so, long story short, and we can get into that, I started my own company, and that's what rolled into what Up in a Day is today.
When I think of New York, and particularly in the advertising world and fashion world, I think of Mad Men, the show Mad Men, and all the crazy antics that went on there, back in the 60s. But I also think it's a very corporate environment. Obviously, there are entrepreneurs there, but they seem to be like, mega entrepreneurs. When I think of Miami, I think of a creative scene. I think of musicians and artists and lots of immigrants coming to live their version of the American dream. And I think I can totally see, as a creative person, you leaving New York and feeling at home and alive in Miami or any place that would have that same vibe. Maybe in the Village in New York, maybe that tiny little neighborhood. You'll if you don't OD, you'll come up with some good creative ideas. But definitely, there's a lot of inspiration in environments like that. I think I was recording an episode yesterday with another guest who was an immigrant to this country, and I think we both, and my parents were immigrants to this country, both of them. I'm first generation American, and we both kind of concluded that, at least maybe not based on science, but our anecdotal observation, that immigrants tend to become entrepreneurs at a greater rate than others, and because they recognize the freedom that they didn't have, wherever they came from. And to a certain extent, you were kind of an immigrant, because you were an immigrant from New York, coming to Miami, which couldn't be any more different. And I'm sure that at some point that must have released a whole bunch of creative ideas in your head, right?
It really did. And you're so right. There are so many immigrants in Miami that are really thriving. And I agree with you that that's one reason, they become successful entrepreneurs. And for me, yes, I've always loved Miami. I've always wanted to live there. And it was the first day I arrived, and I just felt the vibe. Miami has this like heat to it, for me personally. And I was immediately attracted to it. The heat, the sun, the water, the people. Like, for me, it had everything when I arrived. And so that really did spur a lot of inspiration. And you're right. Miami is full of creative entrepreneurs. It has a very large tech startup sector, but that is creativity in its own right, because there are really amazing startups coming out of Miami, startups that are meant to be doing something for example, healthcare, or for the greater good, or for nonprofits. And it's really inspiring and educational to be surrounded by those groups and those individuals on a daily basis.
Yeah, for sure. When I started my business, I didn't know another business owner. I was the kind of the outcast in my social circle. The guy that, okay, fine, you're too good to sign, to sign the back of a check. You go on to sign the front of the check, and it was quite lonely, because no one understood how difficult it was. They all thought, oh, great, that guy's going to just, take as much time off as he wants and write himself checks and go on vacations all the time and write, have the business pay for everything. I mean, all these fallacies that people outside of entrepreneurship have. It would be nice to have been surrounded by other entrepreneurs or otherwise creative people. What were the biggest challenges you faced early on when you started your business, and how did you navigate through them?
Well, actually, I was lonely at the beginning. I did not know how to put one foot in front of the other to start my business. It was so scary. In fact, even though I come from a family of entrepreneurs, I wanted to create something different. The first thing I did when I was off on my own is I started creating, different types of marketing services and offering them to my already existing network. And most of that was in New York. So that kind of rolled into a small digital marketing agency that was very traditional like you would see anywhere else. But ultimately, I wasn't satisfied. There was still this kind of this drive to create something new, to create something that fit with the lifestyle that I wanted to have going forward in my career. And I felt like what I was doing in the digital marketing firm just was not allowing me to have that lifestyle. So when I started thinking about what I wanted to do and what I wanted to create, it wasn't just about the end goal being, X millions of dollars. It wasn't a revenue goal. It was actually a lifestyle goal. Like, what kind of lifestyle did I want to set myself up for? And that was super, again, the word intentional. I didn't fall into that. I was so eager not to go back to corporate because I did not like that lifestyle. I didn't like being in an office. I didn't like being tied to a desk from 9 to 5 or, 9 to midnight. Like, I refused to do that ever again unless it was for my own worth and my own money.
Yeah,
If I was
because
going to do
you're
that,
certainly
well,
going to put
money's
in.
coming to me.
Yeah, you're putting in more hours, building a business than you ever did, working as an employee. But it's different. It's like it's in the zone hours. You know what I mean? It's like timeless
Oh,
hours. You don't realize. I've had a few occasions in the early days of my business where I would come in at 7 in the morning on Monday and finally go home Wednesday evening and never step out of the building. And I mean, obviously, when the sun went down, I realized a whole day had gone by, but it didn't seem like 30 hours. It seemed like, 3 hours. Because you're in that zone, in that creative zone, and everything is timeless at that point. Certainly when you're punching a clock or, you're on a salary, nothing wrong with that. Of course, most people do that. Thank goodness. But I can't ever say that I was in a timeless zone, when I was doing that. I was very aware of every minute, every nanosecond. I was looking at the clock, waiting for 5 o'clock to come. And when I went to my own business, I'm looking at the clock, hoping 5 o'clock wouldn't come because I needed to go. I needed something. I needed to be somewhere, and it's just a whole different experience.
it is a different experience. I went through the same thing when I was building Up in a Day, which, by the way, took about 6 to 8 months. So I was still doing my digital agency on the side. It was fun. It was like, wow, and entrepreneurs, I know we all feel like this, like, oh my gosh, we're building something. We're building something for us. We're building something for our, next customer, our next client. And, how can we you get so creative and you get so inspired and that's something to really hone in on and be proud of. I didn't realize it then because I was enjoying the process, but that is like enjoying the process as you are building something is an experience that should be, remembered forever. Okay. Also, I will say I didn't sleep for like 3 months, and I'm sure you were there too.
Right, right.
You
There's no
build
time to
something.
sleep. Yeah, there's no time to sleep,
Yeah,
and you're in fear that everything's going to collapse at any moment. I mean, you can't
of
sleep.
course. No, and especially if you're bootstrapping it like I did, it's like, okay, time is money, folks. And
Yeah,
then I'm the type of personality that like when I want something done, it gets done, and I want it done now, and I want it done right. So of course, I take that to my own methodology of building something, and it's like, oh my gosh, just I needed to relax for sure a few times, but it paid off in the end.
it always does. Well, it doesn't always actually, but that is certainly one of the key ingredients to have something closer to guaranteed success. Tell me about your company, Up in a Day, and what's its mission?
So Up in a Day, what we do is we build, as you mentioned, we build professional websites for small business owners without the headache. That's the quick elevator pitch. But what we really do, we're a relationships company, I'd like to say, because our goal is to be, yes, fast, but to set business owners up for longevity. I mean, how many people, business owners, do you know right now who have an online presence of any sort, or a website, or no website, that is embarrassed by it or struggling or has gone through a bad experience? My mission when I started Up in a Day was to solve that, to be the answer, like the anti bad big agency, the anti developer who disappears, like to kind of like take our, our huge network of business owners and say, you know what, we got you. It's okay. You just go back to your business and we'll take care of your web presence. And so that is our mission, to really provide a an experience and an online presence to business owners so that they don't have to worry about it anymore. They can actually focus on growing their business. And I know we're just talking about websites, but websites can be the nucleus of so many businesses. And they can be, what's holding people back in growing their business. A lot of our clients will come to us before their clients and they'll say to me, oh my gosh, Lindy, yes, I have a website and I'm so embarrassed by it. And I have all these great ideas. I just don't know how to execute them. Or they'll say, I have all these great ideas to market our company or to bring on a new sales role, but I can't do any of this until we are comfortable with our web presence. And so that's what we do. That's what we solve for. We get them up and running and motivated with the momentum that they need to get to that next level of their business. And we do it fast.
Yeah, hence the name, Up in a Day. I started my business, talk about feeling old. I started my business a few years before the internet. I established my business, which I still own, in 1992. And, the internet really wasn't publicly out there until about 96. So the first 4 years were, OG business. That was old school. And the big companies were big and the small companies were small, and the small companies would stay small for a very long period of time because they didn't have the advertising power and the dollars to get in front of the customer, which was usually in trade magazines or fancy booths at expos and trade shows and things like that. And so it was really difficult to gain traction the first 4 years. And then the internet came out. And suddenly, and almost overnight, every company in the world had the exact same advantage. We now had a platform to say what we wanted to say. And the big companies built, nicer platforms, and the small companies built amateur platforms, largely. But we all had platforms. And it's suddenly the separation between having money to have a voice versus not having to have money to have a voice, a digital voice, was a game changer. It was, to a certain extent, a leveler. In it took away a lot of the advantage that larger established companies had versus startups and mom and pops and things like that. And I realized at that moment, as many other people did, that your website was everything, because it was the first time we could be visible to anyone in the world 24 hours a day. What do we want to say? And it was special. And we put so much effort into wordsmithing every syllable because this is the first chance we had to be on kind of a world stage, right up next to big companies. And I think today, websites have become so ubiquitous and just expected. And most people now don't remember what it was like before the internet. And I think many companies, particularly small startups, have gotten a little bit too passé. They don't realize the importance of it. They don't realize that, particularly today, more than any time in our history, decisions to pursue a company are made in a nanosecond, like passing a billboard at 80 miles an hour. You've got a second or two, and then it's just whoop, it's the Tinder of businesses, right? It's like swipe left or swipe right, but you're not going back, right? And we've got a second or two to make an impression. And I think that not enough businesses realize that, the importance of a professional website or a hipster website or a whatever website, depending on the industry you're in. Has that been your experience that some people just, have a cringeworthy, some people are aware they have a cringeworthy website, some are not. I guess my question, I'm rambling now, but my question is, how do you go about determining the most appropriate design style, the most appropriate fonts, the most appropriate verbiage for your clients' websites?
That's a great question. The way we approach all of our websites is a 3-step process, but the most important step in the process is a long discussion where we really talk about their business, their clients or customers, their ideal clients or customers. Where's their business now? Where do they want their business to be in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months? And really getting a handle and a grasp on who they are, what they need, and where they're looking to grow. Because a lot of business owners, if they're not working with a marketing company, they actually don't know what they don't know. So we take it upon ourselves to educate them on different avenues they can take once they have a great website, or just to get people to get to their website, and then any kind of marketing and sales channels that they can use that will bring people to their website. So which is obviously another topic. But so that's our first step, is to get to know our clients. Then my team gets to work. And typically our clients who are providing their own content, we will help them with copywriting and messaging, because that's really where our strong points are. And that's one way we separate ourselves from a lot of other agencies, is that we have our primary approach to a successful website is having successful messaging. And to have successful messaging, you have to understand how people use websites on mobile and desktop. And then to understand that, you also have to understand their ideal client, right? So websites, they're a dance. They really, really are. You have 3 seconds to capture your ideal client, and they need to make a decision. So you need to make it very easy for them to make that decision. If it's to call, text, fill out a form, download a freebie, sign up for your newsletter, whatever it may be, schedule consults. Before they even do that, you have to connect with them at the top of the page. So having a clear headline and descriptor, and making it not too lengthy, beautiful design, easy to read. And so the fonts need to obviously reflect their brand, but also need to be mobile and desktop friendly and great for GDPR. And of course, so it's like, that's the dance, right? And
Yeah.
ADA compliance. So you're really having to find that balance. Obviously, design is one section or one sector, right? But really connecting, like, you want to be very brand forward with your website as the business owner, right? So it should be in your voice and reflecting your brand through its messaging and design, but also relating, connecting, and getting your ideal client to make that decision on your website. And so speaking directly to them in a voice that they understand, in words that they understand, in the most clear, concise way that sparks that curiosity to want to learn more, or to, even better, to just make the decision on the fly. Especially, as you mentioned, Mike, they're surfing the web, they're doing their shopping, their comparison shopping between you and your comp set, whether you're a local business or whether you service nationally or internationally. They're looking around because they're investing in what you're selling. And so they want to make sure they're making the right decision. And for the business owner, even more so than just conversions, is, I say this a lot, when you are approaching your messaging on your website, you want to make sure that you're speaking to your ideal client, because You don't want your time wasted on the phone. If you have a business that requires some kind of consultation to make the sale or to see if it's a good fit, to convert in any way, you obviously don't want to waste any of your time on the phone with the wrong people and vice versa.
Right. I think it took me probably a couple decades in my business journey to realize this. But, I spent the first couple decades trying to convince customers to come to me, hoping they would. I was like, pick me, pick me, pick me, right? And then I realized that we are choosing our customers just as much, if not more, than our customers are choosing us. Because when we are just standing on the sidelines saying, pick me, pick me, pick me, and we pick and we're grateful for anyone that picks us, we attract toxic customers. And it's not a good match. And we don't make money, we lose money. And our reputation is shot up because, these are otherwise toxic customers. When we are selective about the types of customers that we choose, and I don't mean snobby selective, I mean savvy, and we put some real long-term thought into that, then we attract customers that are more like partners. And I think website design will alienate, if it's done right, the people you don't want to do business with, and attract those that you do want to do business with. So I think there's a lot of psychology behind website design. I to this day still do our websites, because I enjoy it, not because I'm great at it, because I enjoy it, but I'm good enough. And I have kind of a few rules that I live by, and one of them is the 2 to 3 click rule. Like, if you're not going down a mine shaft, but I've seen so many websites that are designed like mine shafts. You're 17 clicks in, and now you're lost. Now you just kind of just go back to the main URL and start over. I can't even find my way back, and it's just like the people who were designing it just went, "Ooh, I got another idea. Just make it another click down." And these things are a mile high, a mile deep, and not very wide. And I prefer a bit more of a horizontal hierarchy with maybe at the most 3 layers down for those who are like really committed. But I like to put 90% of all the relevant information on the main page, without it being incessantly long. But I downloaded an app, probably a couple of years ago, called Hotjar. And it's something that lives, in the code. The customer never sees it. And it's completely anonymous. I'm not getting any information about the visitor to the website, but it records all their mouse movements and clicks. So I can see, it's quite fascinating. I can be a fly on the wall and see how they navigate our website, what buttons they clicked, how long they were on each page. And I did learn something quite useless but fascinating. When people are reading, they're moving their mouse under the words that they're reading. Like one would move their finger on a book under the words, and the mouse never stays still. It's constantly moving around as it's almost tracking their eyes, because they tend to move the mouse where their eyes are for no good reason. It's just kind of a human trait. So I feel like I'm in the mind of a visitor to our website, but it did teach me quite a few human behavior things that were helpful when I would go to redesign something. And if I saw someone moving the mouse around like that, just all these like up, down, left, right, I know they're looking for something they can't find. And that helped me say, I need to make this button a little bigger. I need to put it in a more obvious place, because clearly they're looking for it. And then they finally see it and they click on it. And like, okay, it's just, I don't know. To me, it was fascinating. And every once in a while, it serves no other purpose than for me to kind of confirm design, but there's no strategic advantage. I'm not selling anymore because of it, but it's interesting to see how people actually use the site, and they use it way different than I thought people would use it. I don't know if you've ever used that app or something similar, but it is fascinating.
It is fascinating. I love Hotjar. There's another one, Crazy Egg, that does very similar, has similar features. And it's such a great way to see how your website is performing, because you get those video recordings and it's like, oh my gosh, why aren't they going there? Why aren't they going there? Yes. And you can see their mouse
You're so
kind of
close.
moving.
You're so close. Click, click, click.
Yes. And I agree with you. Like, you just the three parts, and the three parts on your homepage, but really, like you said, and I say this a lot, especially for 2025, 2026, man, nobody likes to click. Don't get them lost. Like, I know you have a lot to share and a lot to say, but say it in your sales call. Like, bring it back a lot.
Less is more.
Less is more. And that's why messaging and your content strategy is so important for your website, but also, and I should say, not but, and your call to action buttons. So my other pet peeve, or at least our huge fix for a lot of websites, is oftentimes you'll see all kinds of different messages inside the button that take you to the same place or take you somewhere where you shouldn't be. So, for example, contact us, or let's get started today, or book a consult with us. Like, if you're using different call to action messages on your buttons, just bring it back, choose one. And I always say, treat it like a kindergartner would want to be read to. Mm-hmm. So if you tell your website visitors what you want them to do, they will do it. And another thing is, I see this a lot. They'll say, book a consult with us. And then it takes you to a contact page to fill out a form. And it's like, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Next. Is there something else I can do? No? Okay.
Yeah. Or it takes them to their Calendly app or something and provides no other info. When I was researching, doing my research for this episode, I found that you've talked about, or you've written about, I can't remember how I found it, but how difficult it is for some people to say no to clients. And I don't remember the context where I read that, but you talked about it. So how did you learn to define who is and isn't the right fit? When is no a better alternative to yes?
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I was actually going to mention this earlier to one of your questions. And what I wanted to say is that, and I guess it has a lot to do with, wasting people's time on the call, and your time is valuable as well. When I started Up in a Day, and I'm so grateful that I came up with this idea, and that was, I built the model of the business. And while I was building the processes, the internal processes and the external processes, I had to know exactly who this was for and who it wasn't for, because Up in a Day is a productized service in a way, with people behind it, if you will, and care. But we're not for everyone. So I had to be very sure who we were great for and who we were not great for. Right. And so I made a lot of lists of who those people would potentially be. And then I did some research and figured out, how old would they be? Because I knew business owners who could afford our services, business owners who didn't want to nitpick at the design and do a lot of back and forth and lengthen the project, any longer than, to 1 to 2, 3 weeks. These people were very busy individuals. They put their trust in us. They knew we could get it done. They knew we could get it done right. And they just wanted to focus on other parts of their business and not have to be part of the website build. That's like who we work with 100% of the time. So when it came to the business being rolled out to the public, I had to be very specific in the messaging on the website, but also in the FAQs. But of course, we get people that come in as leads, and we get on the phone with them, and we do have to say no. So the best thing I did for myself is I created partners. And this was kind of funny, because I don't send everybody to partners, but I needed different types of partners. I needed our big WordPress website developers. that I could trust, that I knew would do a good job and deliver on time. And then I needed this kind of the small fry guys that could build, the basic, easy websites for those who can't afford our services. So when a lead comes in and they're not a good fit, I can say, I literally I've trained myself on exactly how to say it. I'll either say it in an email or I can just say it now, just as you and I are talking, Mike, because that's how we make sales is on a video consult. And I'll say, Mike, we have a very specific process here, and this is how it works. And I really feel like your business would really benefit from XYZ. And I have the perfect person for you. I just really don't think we're a good fit. Or however I say it is much nicer than that. But I'll literally say, I don't think this is a great fit for you. I have someone that I would love to put you in touch with. So you want to make them feel empowered in a way that they're kind of making that decision, but also they respect you for not wasting their time and or hard-earned money for something that they're not going to be happy with.
In your
So
younger days,
communication is everything.
you were probably great to break up with someone because you can like refer them to your sister or your friend or something. They probably felt good about it, right? That's that is that is that is excellent to
Thanks.
be able to kind of let someone down because they aren't a good fit, and still leave them with the thought that they still got value from talking to you. That means that when they think they are a better fit, they're going to come back to you. It's not going to be, oh, you weren't interested then, now you want me. It's a that's a delicate dance, and
It is. Yes.
I see the value
Sorry.
in it. No. I see the value in it, but it is a very delicate dance to do that well without leaving animosity on the table.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know how, I have to have sympathy and empathy for the person on the other side. And whether you know, they're kind of a cold nature or they're a warm nature or however they are, when you're on a sales call, we all know that you have to kind of meet that that lead halfway, kind of like, you kind of meet their personality. If they're like a really slow, low talker, you kind of slow and take and pull back too,
Yeah.
so that you can relate and connect with them. Or if they're like really energetic and they're like raring to go, you can be like give them like a little bit of like
Turn up the
excitement
RPM.
in the
Yeah.
sales call. Um, but yeah, it is. It's having that sympathy and empathy, and also giving them something to walk away with. I try to educate and give a lead, if they're not a good fit for us specifically, something that they can take away. It could be like something that I know will work on their website. Who you work with, please do tell them that you actually need to have this. Don't forget it. Write it down, because you'll need this on the website that you need, or whatever that may be. So giving them something to be grateful for is everything. And it's not only because they may come back in the future, but they will refer you out. And as your business grows, your ultimate goal is to become a referral based business, so you don't have to spend money on crazy advertising.
Yeah.
And we all know, when you get those referrals, the referrals are always sold.
Yeah.
So that
100%.
sales call's like 10 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Running a business, starting a business, growing a business, scaling it is rewarding and terrifying, all kind of in one. You lose sleep because you're too excited. You lose sleep because you're too fearful, right? What's your technique to handle the stress and to keep persevering on, as opposed to just saying, all right, it was a good run, on to something else. How do you get that internal motivation to keep moving forward, even when things are challenging?
I have a very good business coach, so that's helpful. But personally, there are some tactics that I take. The first one, let's say we're having, what's normally a high season for us, it becomes crickets, for example. Instead of freaking out, I get with my team, and instead of going harder on sales, we still focus on sales, but what we really do is we focus on the business. These are times where you grow your team. You put money behind their education. You give them new tasks. You empower them to want to do more, to do better. And I never communicate with a team that we're in a really slow time, even though it's pretty obvious, obviously, because a lot of sales aren't coming in the door like usual. So the cadence is slower. But you divert that situation into, okay, let's empower ourselves. How can we be better? So we'll come up with new products. I'll give you an example, new products and services, for example, or different marketing techniques. That's a huge one for us. Different ways we approach our podcast, different ways we approach our, this is actually kind of a fun one and something that a lot of people can do. Have some fun with your marketing messaging on your organic marketing channels. Change it up, get crazy, add a new color, speak to your ideal audience in a different way, pose a question, hit a pain point, or empower them. Start a workshop, start a webinar, put some money behind it as a fee-based workshop or webinar, or come up with things that you can sell. For example, we had a slow September. September is always slow for us. And I loved it because for the first time in 4 years, I was able to write my ebook.
There you go.
And now of course we've picked up, and that ebook needs to get put on the website. So my team's trying to work on that. But those are the ways we kind of work with the downtimes. Other ways, like with the stress, well, I handle stress a lot differently now than I used to, so I will be vulnerable here and say that my first year to year and a half, I told you I bootstrapped the company. And when I let go of the marketing company for good and just went all in on Up in a Day, I thought everybody would come flocking in the door. And of course, that never happens. You'll get your first few sales and be like, woohoo! And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, well, I need a marketing strategy. So yeah, I had a lot of, those nights where you wake up at 3 a.m. and you're sweating or you think of the worst. Yeah. There's a 1980s song. I wish I could remember it right now, but it talks about that waking up in the middle of the night. And, it's like everything seems so heightened in the middle of the night. And then you wake up in the day and it's like, okay, things are okay. And you can control. So I handle stress with writing, journaling, making lists, changing my weekly habits with the business. And so I become more structured and less loosey-goosey. And that helps to keep the stress way down.
That's a really good approach. Everyone handles it differently. I tend to internalize it a little bit. I've got the ability to compartmentalize stuff, which doesn't make it go away. It just goes in a box next to 20 other things that are either exciting or concerning. And I do have to deal with it. It's like a splinter. It's going to come out at some point. So I do have to deal with it, but it buys me time and it allows me to say, okay, I got a major problem here. Let's not make it worse by just only focusing on that, right? Other things have to keep going. So I've said this on the show before, but I learned to fly airplane. I got my pilot's license many years ago when I was 30. And the instructor taught me, and every person who flies planes were taught this exact same thing, that at all moments that you're flying the plane, at all moments you're in the cockpit, you have to do three things simultaneously: aviate, navigate, and communicate. All three. You do not prioritize one over the other. You do not stop communicating because you're busy navigating. You don't stop aviating, flying, because you're busy troubleshooting a problem or talking to the tower. You got to do all three. And I think in business, the same exact thing goes on. When stress tends to rob from the other required simultaneous elements that are required to keep a business going. So stress, for example, if a pilot was about to land and they didn't get a confirmation that their landing gear was down and locked, they stress about it. They start laser focusing in on that, trying to solve the problem, and then they hit the mountain because they weren't looking out the window. They were looking down at their instruments. It's that's a bit of an exaggeration, but that has actually happened. So I do think it's how we handle stress, not just in our entrepreneurial lives, but in general, needs to be in such a way that you can still multitask and you can still get stuff done. Otherwise, stress brings on stress, which brings on more stress because that's all you're doing now is circling the drain. I also wanted to make a point on website design. One of your specialties is keep it simple, less is more, up in a day, right? Which tells me they're not multi-million-dollar websites like Nike might have or something. The thing today is, if you want to get a website done for dirt cheap, you can just go on Fiverr and pay some kid in a third world nation in his bedroom at night to design your website. And you'll kind of get what you pay for. On the other hand, on the other extreme, you can go to a Madison Avenue firm and you can probably spend $500,000 on a website with focus groups and all this stuff, or somewhere in between. But I think what a lot of companies don't realize yet, and some are, my company's been doing this for a while, and you touched on it. There's more than the website. There are other digital creative projects that one can do that may have a link on your website, but they're not your website. Many years ago, we gave up traditional advertising in our space and went to what I call conscious marketing. We started producing webinars way before webinars were even a thing. I think GoToMeeting was the only platform out there, and it was terrible. Half our audience just lost their connections halfway through. But we did those every month to this day. We call them Tech Tuesdays. In fact, I had one this morning. We started producing workshops, real live workshops all around the country. We started eventually podcasting, and I have a couple of podcasts. One in my day job, my real world, my professional world. I host a podcast that's quite popular there, and then this is my fun one, and I started speaking at conferences all over the world and became known for that. So the website is just a portal to point to all the other things you're pouring energy into. It's not the website or nothing. To me, the website is just the hub with the spokes out to all the various marketing efforts. And I think if someone can design a website and a marketing campaign that is complementary to the website is complementary to that marketing campaign, then the website is a smaller critical factor because it's there to simply, traffic advise you. It's go this way, go that way, go this way. If you need this, go here. And then wherever they go can do the selling, can do the call to actions, whatever the case may be. It doesn't all have to be on the website. Website can be clean. Does that land with you? Do we share that same Pollyannish goal?
Yes, we definitely share the same goal. And I agree with you. The website should be simple, not too crazy, not so much content that, people are just like, okay, enough already. It's like, your website is meant to bring in all of your other marketing efforts into it. But also, if you can balance it and know how to do it, and I'll give you an example in a moment. If you have situation of like marketing channels, like speaking or podcasting, something, or webinars, like bringing that into the website as well is really important because, again, you'll get conversions into your podcast and your speaking engagements, or it will just demonstrate you as an expert in that space. And there's a balance in where to put these other kind of marketing channels, if you will, onto the website, whereas the website should have its main focus. And if the main focus is to do something to convert, like get into, contact you for a consult, for example. We do a lot of service-based websites, so I use that as an example a lot. Then, you have a section on the homepage that talks about your speaking engagements, but really, really lightly, super duper simple, like don't be obnoxious, don't get an ego. And then maybe that can take them to your speaking engagement page if that's where you want people to perhaps go and hire you for a speaking engagement. But your main goal of your website is to promote that main service that you offer, and then everything else should just be touch and go on the site. But super, I know we were using the word simple, and it's never that simple, is it?
Well, I think we build equipment that is highly complex, with all the sensors and computers and touchscreens and all this, and it is remarkably simple to operate. But behind the curtain, there's a lot of complexity to make something simple, right? It's highly complex behind the curtain, but its user experience is highly simplified. And it takes a lot of effort, a lot of psychology, a lot of understanding human nature, a lot of tech to bring a simple interface, a simple user experience to the customer. And I think that experience is undervalued to the companies who are used to doing complex things, right? It's like, okay, well, our customers are all, in our case, our customers are all engineers and scientists. Therefore, they can handle our stuff. And much to my surprise, the further up the education ladder you go, when you get to like double PhD status, most of the people I've dealt with in that world can't navigate a website, right? They can solve, the greatest problems, scientific problems on Earth, but they can't reboot their computer. They can't whatever, because they're just focused on something else. So I think it's highly important for that. A couple more questions because we're almost out of time. One is, if you could go back and give your pre-entrepreneurial self one piece of advice based on what you know today, what would that be?
Don't be so hard on yourself. Good things are to come.
That is great. Where were you when I needed you? One thing, I made a lot of pretty stupid mistakes when I started my business. In fact, I wrote a book last year. I published a book last year called The Reluctant Entrepreneur, same name as the show. And I tell my friends, it's not a how-to book. It's a how not to book. Just avoid every mistake I made, and your chances of success will be greater than mine were, or at least faster. There was a time when I would just beat myself up over the mistakes I made. Like, Mike, you're a smart guy. How stupid could that have been? Really? I mean, you had to work at that stupid idea. And I would beat myself up. And then eventually you get a little clarity, you get a little altitude and perspective. And I started realizing that those were the perfect things that happened, that I needed to go through. And I needed to experience what it felt like to put my hand in the fire, because I will never do that one again. I can't just take it on trust. Like, hey, don't do this because it won't work. I'm like, why won't it work? I don't see why it won't work. And then you do it and you go, yeah, okay, it won't work. But I'm more of an experiential learner. And I'm grateful for all the mistakes I made. Not in the moment, but looking back, I'm very grateful for it. And then as I started this show and when I was writing my book and I started talking to entrepreneurs, doing some speaking to entrepreneurs, I started realizing that we're all the same. We've all made the same but different, but we all made this similar type of mistake. And it's like, I'm not a huge golfer, but I do take huge pleasure in watching a professional golfing match, watching Tiger Woods in the sand trap, trying to get the ball out. Because I've been in the sand trap. And I'm like, oh, me and Tiger are the same, Or hit it in the rough and hit a tree. I've done that. I can do the same moves that Tiger can, right? So I take a little joy in other people's, misery, because I've been there. And when I had these entrepreneurs that I kind of looked up to and thought, wow, I wish I could be more like that person, And then I kind of learned that that person made the same mistakes I did. I realized they just went to the same school. We're all in this PhD program that we don't remember enrolling in. And it's a lifelong program. And we're all taking the same courses. And we all get Fs once in a while, and we all get A pluses once in a while. And to me, it's just, it's the battle scars of building a business. And if you don't have them, you probably didn't do something right. So I'm blessed to have gone through all those hard times, and so when you said don't beat yourself up, I'm like, oh yeah, that is some of the best advice that I think people who are in the thick of it right now can hear. Even though they may be beating
Yeah.
themselves up now, you're going to be thankful for this later.
Yeah, I agree. Like you'll always come out of your mistakes, always. And you'll always make mistakes. And also for the new entrepreneurs out there, piggybacking on what I said, give yourself grace. If you don't like what happened, just write it down and remember that something else that you don't like the outcome of is going to happen again, but you'll always learn from that. Another saying that I learned early on, and hopefully this is will help your listeners, is, what would your 4-year-old self say to you if you went to her or him with your problem or the mistake that you just made? They'd probably say, you know what? Don't worry about it, Lindy. It's okay. We just move on, and it won't happen again. So it's fine. We'll learn from the mistake.
Yeah, as simple as that sounds, it's so hard for adults to, actually hear that and digest that and make that an actionable item. We tend to overcomplicate it. And the last question I have, I have a million last questions, but the last question I'll ask you is, how did you define success when you first started into your entrepreneurial journey, and how do you define it today?
Oh, thank you for asking that. The moment that I had a website reveal, we're like the HGTV of websites. So when I remember one of the early websites that we designed, the client on the other side of the Zoom call, when she saw her website for the first time, she cried.
Wow.
And I still see it. Like our clients, their life changes. I know it sounds so silly, but it's so true because you see your brand come to life all of a sudden. And it's like this big gift that you're getting. It's like, what? That's me. That's my company. Oh my gosh, let's go. So even now, that is the most rewarding thing that Up in a Day has given me. And I had no idea that that's what it would do. I set this business up to help people because I saw a huge gap in the market. But of course, I also, as I mentioned, I set up the business to help my lifestyle be a little bit more at ease. But really, we are a relationships company because what we really do is we change people's lives online and their businesses. So it's really seeing their faces on the other side of the Zoom call when they see their website for the first time. You can see my smile now because I can picture a few of our clients, and we have a website review coming up on Thursday, and I know this specific client is just gonna go nuts when he sees his site because right
That's
now his
awesome.
site is a disaster and he doesn't know what he doesn't know. So it's going to be good.
That's great. You're right. It's like one of those HGTV reveals, when the people take off the blindfold and they're like, oh my God, there's my house. You did mention that you are about to or just have published an ebook. Tell me about the ebook real quick and what's its title and what's it about?
Sure. Well, I actually have 2 coming out. So both of which I just FYI am like we're reworking the titles, but the first one is about SEO and AEO. So that's your SEO now feeding into all of our lovely perplexities and
What is
ChatGPT.
AEO? I've
So
never heard of AEO. I mean,
yeah,
search engine optimization, SEO. What's AEO?
but in the learning management system. So how
Oh,
your website is now being crawled by ChatGPT and Perplexity and others, and obviously Gemini. and how you show up in that search. So I wrote a book on how that works and how you can get listed hopefully easily, and really how you can, and it's more than just having a website, it's how you present yourself and your business online. So tips and tricks for that. And then my other ebook is truly all about everything you and I have talked about in terms of website design. So what truly makes a great UX, things to look out for when you're building your website, strategies that you can take. Here's how to create easy messaging that really speaks to your ideal clients. And it's really a tool to help you. If you're DIYing your website, this is what you'd use. Or if you're working with a freelancer, you would hopefully hand this off. And if they mess up, then you come back to us, because that's what writing a book is all about, right?
Well, for my audience that wants to get more information on Up in a Day, if you're watching this on YouTube, look down here, and there'll be information on how to access Lindy's website. The URL will be there. Are your books ready to publish yet, or no? Sounds like no,
I know,
not yet.
I almost pushed this podcast up. They'll be ready. So where you can find them, they will be ready in 2 weeks' time. So that will be, let's call it November 15th. They will be live and published.
Oh,
they
good.
are ebooks.
This won't air before that.
This won't air before that.
This will probably air around January. So
well, let's read
you can. No, we'll leave it. This is great. So you can just reach out to me. And I will update it before it posts. So I can tell my viewers and listeners, the information is right down here, because I know it will be by the time you see it. And through the magic of time travel, we will get that on there. If you're listening to this on your favorite podcast app, of course, when it's safe to do so, go to your podcast app and look at the show notes and information on Lindsay's vast publishing empire and company will all be there and available. And keep in mind, if you reach out and you want her company to develop your website and you're not a good fit for each other, she will break up with you in the coolest manner and she will refer you to some other people. So it's win-win either way, right? You're going to end up getting what you need, either from Up in a Day or from one of their valued partners. So you can't lose. Lindy, thank you so much for being my guest today. I love this topic. I love the whole idea of websites, as we talked about earlier, and I like the approach you have. I really think that is an underserved part of the market. Between some kid and his, under his sheets doing, websites on Fiverr to Madison Avenue, I think you are in a very strategic, well-needed part of that market that is, from what I can tell, at least from my vantage point, a bit underserved. So I wish you nothing but continued success.
Oh, thank you, Mike. I really appreciate that. And thank you so much for having me on your show. It was a lot of fun.
Well, thanks for reaching out. I'm so glad we talked, and maybe in the near future, I'll check back with you and we'll find out, we'll know you're busy when you've changed the name of your business to Up in a Month, right? So
that's right.
Yeah. All right. Well, take care, Lindy. Thanks for being my guest.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for joining me on this episode of the Reluctant Entrepreneur Podcast. A special thanks to Lindy Nowak for being my guest on the show. We've been busy recording future episodes with fascinating guests, so be sure to subscribe and get notified when new episodes drop. And one quick favor, if you're watching this on YouTube, give us a like and subscribe. Those 2 simple clicks really help us expand our reach. If you're an entrepreneur or know someone who would make a great guest, I'd love to hear from you. Visit reluctantentrepreneur.podcast.com to apply or recommend a guest. You can also reach me directly at mike@reluctantentrepreneur.podcast.com. And, of course, a shameless plug, if you're interested in my book, The Reluctant Entrepreneur, Anatomy of a Business Startup from Uncertainty to Unstoppable, it's available in paperback and Kindle on Amazon and as an audiobook on Audible and Amazon. Thanks again so much for listening or watching. Until next time, be unstoppable. I'll see you soon.